Fearful karma, 99% of new Buddhist learners fall into. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. According to recorded history, the three periods of Buddhism are the age of true Dharma, the age of semblance Dharma, and the age of declining Dharma. However, with inconsistencies in the records, the ancient virtuous ones decided that the age of true Dharma would last 500 years, the age of semblance Dharma 1,000 years, and the age of declining Dharma 10,000 years. The age of true Dharma is a time of strong meditation, meaning that people lived in a period where the teachings existed, practices were followed, and there were those who attained enlightenment. This is the period where, although the Buddha had entered nirvana, the Dharma remained intact. The age of semblance Dharma is understood as a time when the Dharma has deviated from its original path. The teachings remain, but very few people are able to achieve enlightenment, marking the beginning of a decline. The age of declining Dharma is defined as a time when the practice has deteriorated. Everything has diminished, becoming as minute as grains of dust or tiny pieces of sand. The teachings exist but are no longer practiced, and enlightenment is no longer attained. Today, humanity faces countless societal problems, including corruption, drug abuse, prostitution, moral decay, and domestic violence. These tumors continue to spread, mutate in unpredictable ways, and affect all races, nations, and religions. Even the once pure realms of Buddhism have been secularized, leading to widespread loss of faith in the true path. Faced with these current conditions, what should Buddhist practitioners do to protect themselves, overcome obstacles, and advance in their practice? In this video, two terms will be introduced: layperson and monk. Simply put, a Buddhist layperson is a follower who lives in the secular world but has a mind directed towards spiritual liberation. These individuals are knowledgeable in Buddhist teachings, uphold the precepts, and are capable of teaching the Dharma to other lay practitioners and even to monks. Monks, on the other hand, are religious practitioners who lead an ascetic life, living alone or with other monks in a monastery. One could be a person who dedicates their life to serving sentient beings, or someone who practices asceticism, distancing themselves from the world to live a life of prayer and contemplation. First of all, lay people who live secular lives often face many worries and are bound by many attachments. People living in the world, career success, family, and material wealth are the ultimate goals and the meaning of life. In pursuit of good food, fine clothes, and luxurious living, people sometimes resort to unscrupulous means, willing to sacrifice family ties, friendships, and even their own integrity. They lose sight of moral values, kindness, respect, wisdom, and faith. Instead, they are driven by greed, anger, and delusion, creating and spinning in the cycle of ignorance and attachment to the self. Upon learning of the Dharma, with deep insight into the law of cause and effect, they come to understand the workings of karma and the impermanence of all things. Second point is lacking true faith. A layperson must have true faith, deeply believing in the law of cause and effect and realizing the impermanence of all things. Only by sincerely practicing the Dharma can one eliminate karmic obstacles and be freed from the sufferings of samsara. One must have complete faith in their own capacity for enlightenment, and with patience and perseverance, practice diligently without expecting or seeking to avoid obstacles or chasing illusions. Unfortunately, most lay people today turn to Buddhism, worship and pray for the fulfillment of their desires, feeding their greed, anger, and delusion, as well as their ego. They do not understand, believe, even want to believe that all their merits and sins, and the results of their karma, come from their own action. They fail to see that cause and effect is just and fair. Each person creates their own cause and must bear the corresponding result. To meet the desires of lay people, many monks organize elaborate ceremonies filled with superstition and reverence for divine power, distorting the truth. They secularize Buddhism, turning a path of enlightenment and liberation into a path of worshiping gods, promoting mysticism, and feeding delusions of ego. All of this is driven by profit, as the money gained from these rituals is not insignificant. Instead of promoting and teaching the true Dharma so that people may deeply understand and develop genuine faith in the foundations of Buddhism, guiding them back to the right path, monks follow the delusions of the lay people. creating obstacles in order to earn money and accumulate wealth for themselves. Anyone who speaks out in defense of the true Dharma is met with evasive justifications, claiming they are using skillful means, adapting to circumstances, and integrating Buddhism into the world. Lay practitioners are told not to criticize the monastic community, while faith in the monks is clouded by delusion, superstition, strong desires, and wrong views. With such rampant ignorance, where is the future of Buddhism headed? The third issue is obstacles in studying Buddhism. This is a common problem for most current practitioners. Why? Because learning about Buddhism is easy. Anyone can do it. However, sincerely practicing the Dharma to transcend birth and death is extremely difficult. Not everyone possesses the necessary qualities of boundless compassion, unwavering resolve, and the selfless, enduring practice of patience. The ingrained habits of ignorance, attachment, and craving, accumulated over countless lifetimes, continue to pull sentient beings into the cycle of desire and suffering. When one makes the determination to practice the path of liberation, these obstacles manifest fiercely, subtly influencing every corner of one's mind, burning away the aspiration for the true path, shattering faith, and undermining all efforts to overcome and subdue these challenges. This explains why so many practitioners today fear hardship and avoid the arduous training of monastic discipline and renunciation, abandoning the route for temporary pleasures and neglecting the true nature of practice. While there are clear distinctions in Buddhist studies with degrees and certifications such as bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees in Buddhism, what is there to certify one's virtue in practicing the Dharma and renouncing the world? Remember, it is only through genuine virtue and pure practice that one becomes a true and exemplary Buddhist, someone who can bring enlightenment and carry forward the life force of Buddhism in the world. Academic qualifications in Buddhist studies have nothing to do with this great task. Attaining liberation from birth and death, on the contrary, can be hindered if one's practice is misdirected, causing even deeper attachments and a stronger sense of self, thereby perpetuating the cycle of samsara. Practitioners of Buddhism may deceive one another, but they cannot hide from the eyes of gods and spirits, let alone the protective Dharma guardians and Buddhas. One must cultivate Buddhist practice with dignity, and not merely study Buddhism superficially. The understanding that arises from knowledge, hearing, seeing, feeling, thinking, is an obstacle on the path. When encountering external objects, seeing is knowledge, hearing is knowledge. Sensations through the body give rise to feelings, and thoughts give rise to concepts and understanding. All of these are forms of karmic consciousness, knowledge gained from searching, studying, and accumulating experiences over countless lifetimes. This is worldly knowledge, a barrier on the path to enlightenment, not the wisdom that naturally unfolds when the mind is perfected, and the practitioner attains the state of non-thought, leading to ultimate insight and liberation from birth and death. Thus, if one uses worldly intellect to study Buddhism, one will never achieve the highest enlightenment and liberation. Even children may memorize scriptures fluently, but a lifetime of practice may not guarantee the eradication of the roots of greed, anger, and delusion. So what should a Buddhist practitioner do? For those who are new to the Dharma, it is essential to first understand the fundamental teachings of Buddhism, summarized as impermanence, suffering, non-self, non-attachment, compassion, joy, equanimity, morality, concentration, wisdom, cause and effect, and karmic retribution. Once these basic principles of Buddhism serve as a guide for one's life and practice, one should diligently and sincerely cultivate the Dharma with the resolve to transcend birth and death. Purify the six senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, by focusing the mind on meditation with unwavering dedication throughout the 3 periods of time. Do not develop attachment to anything in the world, and in the great work of practice, do not seek external goals. With patience, fortify the mind, cultivate virtue, and adorn the path. Gradually, you will subdue the wandering mind, purify karmic obstacles, and surely one day attain the state of right concentration and the perfection of paramita. If one seeks to escape the cycle of birth and death while desiring blessings and miracles, this is an obstacle for lay practitioners. In practice, or even in paying respects to the Buddha, why is there fear? It is because the mind is often clouded with attachment to the self, desiring blessings and counting how many times one chants the Buddha's name or prostrates. This is no different from bargaining with the Buddha, releasing animals, giving alms, or doing good deeds. Ultimately, all of it is for the ego. More than anything, it is the misguided thinking passed down that says, "Give everything, and you will receive everything in return," which traps the mind in the prison of the self, preventing liberation. Instead of practicing the Buddha's teachings of compassion, joy, equanimity, selflessness, and non-attachment, one nourishes desires and inflates the ego through the duality of giving and receiving. Often, when practicing the path of enlightenment and liberation of the Buddha, individuals tie themselves to their own mental constructs, never truly letting go in order to attain liberation. As a result, the corresponding karma is limited and minuscule. Remember, do not turn virtue into a transaction. Once you've committed to practicing Buddhism, absolutely do not cling to the self or ego. Instead, diligently nurture compassion, joy, equanimity, selflessness, non-attachment, avoiding any setback. Cause and effect will align accordingly. For monks, when putting in effort, there is often a desire for miracles and the appearance of auspicious signs when chanting the Buddha's name, meditating, reciting mantras. They hope for quick enlightenment, see the Buddha nature, to awaken the chakra, heal all illnesses, or to attain supernatural powers and perceive metaphysical realms. Because of these misguided desires and inner obstacles, when meditating, they attract demons and false illusions, leading them astray. When they desire to see the Buddha, a false Buddha appears. When they long for auspicious signs, false signs appear. Over time, they become attached and entangled in these illusions, unable to free themselves, falling into delusion and losing the true path to enlightenment. In reality, throughout history, many practitioners of meditation, chanting, or mantra recitation have fallen into deep delusion, completely losing control over their body and mind, sometimes even descending into madness. They are not fortunate enough to encounter a teacher who has realized their Buddha nature and who has the compassionate vow to help them. Their connection to the triple gem, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, will be severed. When they die, they will enter a realm of delusion. To protect the body and mind from external demons and internal obstacles, a practitioner must strictly adhere to the principles of Buddhist practice, practicing without seeking results, without expecting miracles, without attachment to the self, and without reliance on any external entity. Keep this in mind. The fifth point is about the deification of monks and nuns. Respect for monks and nuns, those who have truly renounced the world and practice pure conduct, is a fundamental attitude that lay practitioners must have. However, deifying them is absolutely not recommended. That is not right faith, which is based on right view and wisdom, but rather a form of blind devotion to the outward appearance of monastics. Without the light of right view, it is easy to go astray on the path. Monastics differ from lay people in that they have the favorable condition of renouncing worldly ties and focusing solely on the path of liberation. However, like all sentient beings, they are still ordinary people, still subject to ignorance, craving, and attachment to the self, which they must strive to purify and eliminate. Therefore, deifying monks and nuns may lead them to develop arrogance and pride, which becomes an obstacle on their spiritual path, creating further hindrances and delusions, leading to a decline in their practice. Indeed, it is seen in reality that many lay people, instead of respectfully greeting monks with palms together, prostrate to them as if they were worshipping the Buddha. This is truly inappropriate. Likewise, for monks who have not yet realized the Buddha nature, they should absolutely not accept even a single prostration, as it damages their virtue. A monastic's life depends on the support and offerings of the lay community. When they still have ignorance, craving, and attachment, and are far from ending the cycle of samsara, how can they allow lay people to bow down to them in this way? How can they hope to complete their spiritual path if they continue to harbor arrogance and view themselves as superior? Furthermore, current degeneration of some monastics, particularly those living luxurious and indulgent lifestyles, partly due to the excessive reverence shown by Buddhists. Always remember that the robe does not make the monk. On the contrary, it is only through diligent practice, sincere compassion, unwavering resolve, and noble conduct that a true monastic is made. Only such a true practitioner is worthy of respect, offerings, and the reverent palms of lay people, becoming a field of boundless merit in the world. Sixth, the decline of the Bodhi mind. For lay practitioners, the hardships of making a living, endless difficulties of life, and continuous family obstacles make it hard to progress on the spiritual path. Old habits and attachments create further hindrances. A lack of mindfulness and diligence makes one easily influenced by worldly distraction. Without a wise teacher to guide them, and without a clear understanding of the meaning and purpose of their practice, all these adversities and inner obstacles, brought about by karma, can easily cause lay practitioners to lose their Bodhi mind. For monastics, despite having renounced worldly life, ignorance and karmic obstacles still remain. Thus, their minds may still cling heavily to ego, craving, and attachment. In seeking fame, wealth, and sensual pleasures, they lose their original mind, becoming attached to material comforts and forgetting their true nature. Some call for donations and misuse temple funds, focusing on building large, luxurious temples in convenient locations, lacking nothing. They seek recognition and rewards from religious authorities and the government. When they receive such accolades, they show them off to lay people, using them to promote the reputation of their temple and themselves, all in an effort to attract more offerings and merits. How is this different from robbing the merits and efforts of the faithful? Moreover, when families face difficult situations, some monastics even set prices for funeral rites and memorial services. If lay people want to enter the main hall to worship the Buddha, abbot of the temple may require them to purchase a new robe before being allowed in. They abuse the Dharma, selling sacred scriptures and objects, violating the precepts, and turning the monastery, a place of liberation, into a marketplace filled with worldly corruption. They justify their actions with twisted logic and misguided views, using the name of Buddhism for their own gain. We are now witnessing the disturbing trend of monastics singing, dancing, and filming themselves to post online for likes. Even worse, immoral acts are being committed in what should be the peaceful and pure environment of the monastery, turning it into a place of shame and sorrow for many people. Alas, these are the demons in disguise as monks, destroying Buddhism from within. Just like the Buddha once warned, the lion's flesh is devoured by worms within its own body. Remember, practicing Buddhism is not easy. One must light the torch of wisdom and follow the path independently. The Buddha is merely a guide, showing the path to enlightenment and liberation. Sentient beings, deeply mired in ignorance and burdened by accumulated karmic obstacles from countless lifetimes, can never escape the endless cycle of suffering unless they rely on their own awakened mind, sincerely practicing the Buddha's teachings to purify and eliminate all obstacles. When will they ever be free from the heavy burdens of suffering? Gains and losses, praise and blame, joy and sorrow, nothing in this world lasts forever. Therefore, do not cling to or dwell on these fleeting things. Life is short and impermanent. In the blink of an eye, the 100-year journey ends, and ultimately, everyone meets the same fate, grave. But where will the self go amidst the pain of samsara? Only through genuine Buddhist practice can one follow the fastest path to break through delusion, attain enlightenment, and escape the cycle of birth and death. Ultimately, only you can save yourself. True faith means that no matter the favorable or challenging circumstances, no matter the obstacles or difficulties, the mind remains calm, directed upward, joyfully accepting karma and steadfast in the aspiration for liberation. One must diligently accumulate merit, practice repentance, and wholeheartedly follow the compassionate and wise path of the Buddha. May Buddhist practitioners, both monks and laypeople, cultivate virtue, compassion, wisdom, and courage, dispel wrong views, uphold the true Dharma, and protect the Buddhist teachings in this world. May they follow the path of compassion without letting their Bodhi mind decline, without getting lost in confusion, without following false teachers or collaborating with demons in practice. If they cause the Dharma to decline, then their wisdom life will be severed, and they will certainly fall into shared karmic suffering in the future. Seventh, the ego. Degrees and academic titles, even fame, are mere illusions and say nothing about enlightenment. They have nothing to do with the great matter of liberation from birth and death. Likewise, the number of years one has spent practicing does not necessarily reflect their virtue. Each person's path depends on their karma, wisdom, and mind. A senior monk may not yet have attained enlightenment, while a new practitioner may not be as deluded. The Buddha's supreme enlightenment and liberation are not reserved for anyone in particular. They come to those whose minds are awakened and who sincerely practice the Buddha's teachings, regardless of their form or status in this world. Only the power of wisdom and meditation can help practitioners break through delusion, attain enlightenment, and liberate themselves from birth and death.